Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. The Prime Minister was in Uttarakhand today in Devbhoomi, both in Kedarnath as well as in Badrinath. He inspected the progress of various development projects there, including the Char Dham project. This is in keeping with the other Hindu temples that the Prime Minister has visited, whether it's the Kashi Vishwanath, the Ujjain Mahakal, amidst much pomp and fare. Now, the question is, the Prime Minister, is he signalling a new normal in Indian politics? There used to be a time when it was not okay to display your faith on your sleeve, where it was not okay for prime ministers and chief ministers and other people in high-ranking public offices to be seen as going to religious places. It was okay to go to iftar parties, it was okay to wear skull caps during iftar parties, but it was not okay to be publicly seen during temple pujas and aartis and darshans. Has that completely changed in the last 8 years of Prime Minister Modi? But first, the story.
Nearly a year after his last visit to Kedarnath, the call of Baba Kedar brought Prime Minister Modi back to the temple. Donning a traditional Pahadi outfit called Chola Dora, made by the women of Chamba in Himachal Pradesh, Prime Minister Modi performed a puja at Kedarnath temple. When he was gifted the outfit during a recent visit to Himachal, he had promised the women that he would wear it at the first instance during a visit to a cold region. He honoured the women by keeping his word. Prime Minister Modi also visited the Adi Guru Shankaracharya Samadhi Sthal in Kedarnath. He also interacted with Shramjeevis working on development projects and inquired if they were receiving benefits of government's welfare schemes. Accompanied by Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Pushkar Dhami, Prime Minister Modi then proceeded to Badrinath. He offered prayers at the famous Badrinath temple and reviewed the progress of development work of the riverfront in Badrinath. Striking a balance between Astha and Vikas, Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone for roadway and ropeway projects worth 3,400 crores for the Kedarnath and Badrinath temples.
Jai Badri Vishal.
And addressed a massive gathering at Manna village.
21वीं सदी के विकसित भारत के निर्माण के दो प्रमुख स्तंभ हैं। पहला, अपनी विरासत पर गर्व और दूसरा, विकास के लिए हर संभव प्रयास।
From rebuilding Ram Janmabhoomi to renovating Kashi Vishwanath and the Mahakal temple in Ujjain, and now putting the spotlight on Kedarnath and Badrinath. Is Prime Minister Modi making a pitch for cultural restoration?
All right, so is the Prime Minister making a pitch for a civilizational, cultural, spiritual rejuvenation? As he said, we have to be proud of our virasat, or our inheritance, and who we are as a people, as a nation. Let me now go across to Tuin Sinha, BJP spokesperson, Ratan Sharda, RSS researcher and author, Badri Narayan Tiwari, historian and author, Shashank Mani is also an author, and Sanjay Jha, political analyst, joining us. Let me start with Tuin Sinha. Tuin, I said this at the top. There was a time when in this country it was not politically correct for prime ministers, senior leaders in public office to be seen as going to temples, taking part in the Aarti, the Darshan, reciting the shlokas along with the Purohits. But today, over the last 8 years, whether it is Ujjain Mahakal, whether it is Kashi Vishwanath, and whether it is today Kedarnath and Badrinath, the Prime Minister has made this the new normal. Do you believe that this is beyond just the temporal, beyond just, of course, increasing tourism potential and infrastructure development? This is about a civilizational rejuvenation which the Prime Minister is hoping to attempt.
Well, absolutely. Good evening, Jaka, to you, to all the panelists and to the viewers. The Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's proud espousal of Sanatan Astha stems out of the fundamental belief and conviction that India is a spiritual and civilizational democracy and country that draws her strength from the ancient virtues of the Sanatan Dharma. And this becomes all the more important at a time when the Congress party is busy likening the Updesh of Krishna to Arjun in Mahabharata with jihad. But anyway, there is a larger point to it. 40,000 temples in India were destroyed over a period of 800 years. And the Somnath temple specifically was destroyed multiple times, which is one of the most pious Jyotirlings which one can come across. Barring the effort by Dr. Rajendra Prasad against the wishes of the then Prime Minister PM Nehru, when has the Congress stood up for Sanatan Astha? I think this is the message over here. The saffron color, the chandan, the tilak, the swastik, they cannot be abandoned simply because they represent our age-old virtues. So number one, there is the point of justice. The restoration of temples is important. Is an important pointer of our cultural legacy, as the Prime Minister himself has pointed out. Number two, if you look at the economy, I mean, if from 1.5 crore people annually, if the restoration of the Mahakal corridor increases the pilgrims to 3 crore, that obviously improves the economy of the place. And why should we at all be apologetic about it?
Okay, let me ask Sanjay Jha. I said this at the top and I'm saying this again. There used to be a time when it was okay for politicians in this country to be seen at iftar parties, but not okay for them to be seen at temples, certainly not okay for them to be seen taking part in the Aarti, in the Puja, so on and so forth. Mr. Modi seems to have inverted that entire thing, where he now makes it a point to address this whole cultural rejuvenation aspect. He makes it a point that he wears his religion on his sleeve, where it's not politically incorrect anymore to do so.
Zaka, I said yes to being on your program today because I believe that today is one of those days where we all need to speak our mind out. And I'm going to tell you something. I heard Tuhin Sinha, and I want to say it on your show very publicly because very few say that about Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. But he is India's most divisive, dangerous leader since we became an independent country. Look at what the Supreme Court has said today. Mr. Modi is free to pursue his cultural trips, no problem. Even I'm a proud Hindu, by the way. And we all like our religion, we respect it. No problem. But you're the Prime Minister of this country. And if you read what the Supreme Court has said, it makes this government look what it truly is. A dangerous government. It is fracturing our society. And I think you need some gall and audacity, whether it's Mr. Tuhin Sinha or Mr. Sharda later on, to try and justify what's going on in this country. Hate speeches? Sure, they will come and say, this one said this one said this. All political parties are guilty to some extent. But it's the BJP which is the principal offender, and they do it because they have a crude and a very blatant and a brazen agenda to divide our country.
So Sanjay, I want to press on this for a moment, if you will, please. I want to know from you specifically, I'm not getting into the hate speeches, that then becomes a different debate altogether. When you say divisive, polarizing, what is it that he did today, or what is it that he said today, the Prime Minister, that makes you come to that conclusion? Because, I heard the speech that he gave at the Mana village, which is the last village in the India-China border. I didn't find anything that, as you say, was polarizing or divisive. So I'm sort of pressing that point. What did you find so divisive about what he did or said today? Once again, I'm asking Sanjay because he said something.
So take a deep breath. You'll get your opportunity. The point I'm making, Zaka, is this. You are free. I'm very proud to go to a temple. No problem. Mr. Modi is called a Hindu Hriday Samrat since 2014. By the way, I live in Bombay, Zaka. Get your TV cruise to go to Mumbai. During the last couple of weeks, there are open religious affiliations being drawn to the BJP and Mr. Modi in billboards all over the city. It's very blatant, and you're right. This is a new normalization of religion in Indian politics. My issue is the dog whistle politics that Narendra Modi plays. Does he take any action against Parvesh Verma? Does he say anything about Anurag Thakur? He's the man who talks about Kabristan, Shamshan. You can make out who's the perpetrator by the color of their clothes. He's got an extremely checkered track record. beginning with 2002 Gujarat riots.
Okay.
Mr. Modi can do the artifice and the pretense. I don't think
Toheen to
anybody
respond, and then
threats
I'll go to
that.
Ratan
He never
Sharda after that.
condemns- never
Toheen,
condemns sectarian
the proof of the pudding is in about condemning hate speech, in about taking action against the likes
No,
of a
I hope
Parvesh
Sanjay now
Verma
takes a
when he
deep
calls
breath
for
and
social
listens to me.
boycott. No one has a problem
hope-
with
I hope-
going to temples and the religious
No, no,
symbolism,
in the
wearing
last-
it on your
in the
sleeve.
last 10 days.
But can you be seen as not taking action against these hate speeches?
No, Zaka, let Sanjay now take some deep breath. In the last 10 days, from the Mahakal temple till today, in both the speeches, go through the speeches of Honorable Prime Minister carefully. Where has he spoken a word that is divisive? Is extolling the virtues of Adi Shankaracharya, who traversed the length and breadth of the country way back in the 8th century before the invaders, started destroying our temples. Is that divisive? The only things divisive that I can point out is Mallikarjun Kharge's reference that if you elect Narendra Modi again, you will be reviving Sanatan Dharma. The only thing divisive I can think of is Shivraj Patil's speech likening Krishna's Upadesh to Arjun with jihad. So who is divisive? It is very clear.
Okay. Let me go to Ratan Sharda. No, one second. Let me go to Ratan Sharda. So the criticism, Ratan Sharda, from people like Sanjay Jha, the Congress, the opposition, is that the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of all Indians, and fair enough. I mean, no one has a problem with him going to Ujjain Mahakal, him going to Kedarnath, Badrinath, absolutely perfectly fine, and I don't see any reason why this yesteryear political correctness should be associated with not going to temples. I mean, it's absolutely fine for the Prime Minister to wear his religion on his sleeve. But being the Prime Minister of all citizens, the criticism from opposition parties is, why doesn't he go for iftar parties? Why doesn't he go for mosque renovation or church renovation like he does for Ujjain Mahakal or for Kedarnath and Badrinath? Because then you are drawing a distinction.
Well, Zaka, first of all, I would not like to get into the low-level, anger-filled debate right now. First, let me put my part across on what I think of the entire episode that happens today, what really rankles Congress in a very, very horrible way, and why they feel so upset. See, we have been behaving for 70 years like we are trying to identify ourselves with something for 70 years, which we are not. We are trying to define a nation which was already there for tens of those years. We tried to prove that nation was born on 15th August 1947, courtesy Nehru, Mountbatten and all that. And we have tried to negate our own nationalism, our own nationhood, our own culture, our own geopolitical unique culture, our knowledge, our spirituality. We just wanted to give it up in the name of secularism, in the name of copying the West. Now, since 2014, we have a Prime Minister who he says what he is, unapologetically Bharatiya, unapologetically Hindu, and also like a true Hindu, giving due justice to everybody. So this identity with what we are versus what we are not, that is the biggest change that has happened since 2014. And you can't deny that for 2014, it was sin to call yourself Hindu. It was embarrassing to visit temple. And why were temples were in such a disrepair? When crores of rupees were taken out for in the name of temple ownership by the government and fee charge for that, tax paid on that, why temples in such a horrible condition? They have to respond to that. Just because you talk about secularism, you talk of first right to minority, etc., doesn't absolve you from using temple money in your own way but not repairing them.
Okay.
Now coming to one point, a very important point. This particular aspect of developing pilgrimage is true to our old Bharatiya heritage, Hindu heritage, where temples were center of economics, where pilgrimage itself was a center of entire economic activity, because of which when the world was going into recession, world was in a bad condition, our economy was throttled on, and we had, if you look at our towns, ancient towns, they have been alive, they have been successfully running for thousands of years compared to the industrial towns that came and went down with the civilization as the car went out. So this pilgrim, which creates the right kind of economy for the poor.
Let me ask Badri Narayan, Professor Badri Narayan. One of the interesting things is, and you've written about this, Professor, that after Mr. Modi came on the national political scene from 2014 onwards, there is today a Hindu constituency. Prior to 2014, there was a Yadav constituency, there was a Brahmin constituency, there was a Rajput constituency. But today, and this is across geographical divides. You can find this in Uttar Pradesh, you can find this in Karnataka. there is a Hindu constituency which relates with the messaging of Mr. Modi, which relates with this rejuvenation, the spiritual rejuvenation, the cultural rejuvenation, and which also resonates with dropping this political correctness about, you have to go to an iftar party, but you can't be seen at a temple. How is this also a political project? That's what I'm trying to understand. Badrinath Tiwari. Yeah.
Jaka, you have rightly presented the entire thing, and you have in excellent way told this entire process, explained the entire process. In fact, this is a rise of a Hindu to a consciousness, you can say, or Hindu consciousness, you can say, and that is beyond caste, beyond community, beyond various kinds of fractional and fractious of the Indian society. So, or you can say Hindu society, whatever. So that's you are very right that after 14, this making of Hindu consciousness and Hindu identity, which can encompass all the caste identities and bring them together, is expanding and disseminating. It is a political project also, and in Indian politics, religion always plays important role, played important role. Even 40 years ago, even 50 years ago, but that time they were doing it hide and seek, Luke-Chipita theory. But because there was a pressure of secularism, pressure of getting the vote of a certain community. But what BJP did, that they made a bigger alliance of Hindu communities, and they made Muslim voters redundant in one way or irrelevant in one way. But it does not mean that they don't understand the value of the Muslim vote or the Muslim community, because through entire this social schemes, BJP and Teen Talak and all, Modi is entering. BJP through Modi and also through various ways, governmental developmental ways, are entering among the Muslims also. But primarily, it's a Hindu consciousness. It's a Hindu consciousness is growing, and in that, culture plays a very important role. These temples plays very important role.
Okay.
In fact, temples are the symbolic representation of Hindu consciousness, and Narendra Modi understands it, and he is.
Of course, he has manifested that. He has made sure that there is instilling a certain degree of pride, if you will. But I want to ask Shashank Pani, one of the points that Ratan Sharda also made and other commentators have been making is, why shouldn't the Prime Minister do this? Because in many states across the country, including in Uttarakhand where he went today, the temples are controlled by the state government. There is a HRNC department, there's an endowments department, there are boards that control the monies that come into temples. So why shouldn't the Prime Minister, who represents the state, go to institutions which ultimately are controlled by the state? At least the finances of it are controlled by the state. You can't say that about mosques or churches or gurdwaras in this country, but certainly a large number of temples in a large number of states in this country are controlled by the state.
Thank you for having me on the panel. I'd make a broader point. I think the Prime Minister is accelerating something that he's passionate about in this 75th anniversary, because our civilization has always been defined by the footsteps of pilgrims. So when he goes to Badrinath or a Kedarnath, he's signaling to the whole country that we have forgotten the enormous heritage that we have in our own country. He's decentralizing culture. He's making sure it goes to the last mile. So that democracy truly benefits from what I think is a great cultural heritage. And for all goodness, we have forgotten that for the longest time. He's rediscovering it. And I think that therefore, the debate whether it is owned by the government or not is somewhat secondary. The main point is that by going to a temple like this, or indeed to Ujjain, he's actually suggesting that we should explore the real India. Otherwise, civilizational forces, cultural forces are what I call are in the great traditions. There are many little traditions, and temples are only one part of it. There's an enormous amount of cultural variety below that, enormous amount of Ayurvedic traditions below that. So I think he's exploring and wanting us to explore the traditions of this country so that not only can we be seen as a cultural strong nation, but we can also economically benefit the real India. So that's kind of my point of view.
Okay.
I can answer your specific question, but if you want me to dwell on this further.
Okay. So let me go across to Tuhin Sinha as well. Again, I keep coming back to what the opposition's criticism is. One of the criticisms is that in his 8 years as Prime Minister, there was one instance of Prime Minister going to Abu Dhabi for a mosque inauguration. He took the Japanese Prime Minister, the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, when he visited Gujarat. Again, he took him to a masjid there for its renovation work, and I think once in Indonesia. Why has the Prime Minister not shown the same enthusiasm? This is the criticism from the opposition for renovation of mosques or churches or gurdwaras as he has shown for temples.
You know, Zakat, this is an era of giving justice, historical justice to people and to places that have been left behind. So whether it is our freedom fighters or whether it is our places of worship, the Congress has done enough for the for the mosques and for the other side. I'm asking you a simple thing. Today, if you look at the sheer, architectural marvel of some of our temples, particularly those in the south, anybody would have been proud of it, but rather we played them down. We never made a conscious effort to have them acknowledged by UNESCO. Why? Because it was fashionable not to talk about temples. If a prime minister is proudly doing that, is he dividing the country as the Congress would like you to believe, or is he invoking our civilizational pride, which is what we believe? And you were talking about the consolidation of the Hindu society as a whole. That is all the more important any which way at a time when we are seeing demographic distortion across the world and the world is acknowledging it. So what is the harm in it?
No, but Tuhin, the point is that previous prime ministers also, Mrs. Gandhi was a big Hindu bhakt. I mean, she was surrounded by god men and women. She was compared to Ma Durga. There's recorded a sort of evidence of her as well as Rajiv Gandhi giving great amount of donations to restoration of Hindu temples. Maybe they didn't do it in the public glare. So the criticism is again, one of the commentators who came on the previous show, he said, this doesn't have to be a national event.
No, I don't see a reason why it does not need to be a national event. Like one of your panelists or one of your speakers was mentioning, if it instills some amount of knowledge about Adi Shankaracharya, which somebody in the Northeast may not be aware of, or somebody in Orissa may not be aware of, that serves its purpose.
Okay.
We are acknowledging our icons, the real icons who have not been acknowledged so far. So I think the message is for the entire country. I think never before has a country, whether it is the Northeast or the South, been so proud of our inherent culture and heritage. And I think the more he does it, the more the country would appreciate.
So Sanjay, why is this a problem? I mean, if American presidents can take the oath of office with their left hand on the Bible, and the dollar bills even today say, "In God we trust," why should we be so squirmish about an Indian Prime Minister displaying his faith on his sleeve? You have to unmute, Sanjay.
Zaka, for the simple reason that the US Supreme Court is not telling the president and his government that you act or it will be a contempt of court if you don't stop hate speech. And we all know that the growth in hate speech has been like 500% since Mr. Narendra Modi became Prime Minister. India has experienced lynching, murders. India is seeing today a call for genocide. You have BJP MPs openly talking about segregating a community. It's blatant, brazen, it's a daylight murder of India's constitutional democracy. And I want to tell one point on your show, Zaka. Mr. Sharda's RSS or Mr. Tuhin Sinha's BJP has got no legitimacy to talk about Hinduism. I'm a Hindu and I'm a very proud Hindu, by the way. And who has appointed the RSS or the BJP to be the custodians of this great, what I call as an eclectic, ecumenical religion? It's a tolerant religion. They're abusing it. All because for them it is nothing but, I call it majoritarian appeasement and majoritarian politics.
Sanjay, I mean, for the Congress party, which was in power for so many years, nobody stopped Congress prime ministers from doing what Mr. Modi is doing. They were free to do the same thing.
Well, Zaka, a simple point here. You know how many BJP leaders have already said it publicly that if they have a chance, and I believe it, that if the BJP were to return in 2024, they will actually remove secularism from the Indian constitution. 2025 is RSS's 100th celebrations. I think the entire Sangh Parivar is getting into the act. We all know what happened during Garbha. We all know how Muslims were flogged publicly. And this is a whole game plan. and Mr. Modi is the spearhead of the
No, so
entire thing.
again, I think, Sanjay, with due respect, you are bringing in two separate issues. I'll ask Ratan Sharda to comment on this. No one is condoning hate speech. If a BJP MP is calling for social boycott or economic boycott of a community, that is unacceptable. If people are being flogged at Garba, that is unacceptable. But that has nothing to do with what we saw today in Badrinath and Kedarnath. So it's two separate issues, and I don't want to bring, I don't want to confuse one for the other. But Ratan Sharda, please respond to what Sanjay is saying, that ultimately all of this is Project Hindu Rashtra in 2025 or 2024. This is what he said, that India will cease to be a secular republic. Anyway, the BJP and the RSS think that, the custodians of secularism are not secular at all. It's just pseudo-secularism.
First of all, secularism is a word put into constitution in 1976 in absence of any opposition. All of them were in jail. So don't try to pass it off as one of the fundamental features of 1951 constitution. So let us get over that particular self-flagellation by Congress. It is something that happened in 1976 under emergency. It is not basic feature. You might quote Supreme Court, whatever. So don't try to say we are secular because we are Hindus. Any other area of India which is not Hindu majority, where is secularism left there? Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, even Kashmir, for example, and wherever there is a majority of non-Hindus, even within India today, there you can't celebrate the festivals. You are under constant threat. You are threatened by people. And this particular aspect of Garba lynching, etc., though not the point of this particular debate, was one of the what are the major flashpoints? Sartan Sajuda, did you condemn that? So let us stop that. I am basically trying to come back to the main issue. What is our definition as a geocultural nation? And talking of Hindu Rashtra, I am saying this is a Hindu Rashtra. All we need to acknowledge that our roots, our tradition, our culture, they basically flow for Hindu past of last 10,000 years. All our knowledge, including science, metallurgy, medical, whatever you call it. Why shouldn't we be proud of that? And why should we not repair our temples if we can repair church and mosque? Why not? And do you know, you can research. ASI gets grants from Aga Khan for repairing Mughal places of history, but it is not allowed. It doesn't take contribution for repairing the Hindu places of eminence. Why? I don't know.
So, Ratanji, can I ask one question? Now, I think what the opposition is trying to get at, or what... Just give me 10 seconds. What people like Mr. Owaisi and all are trying to get at, what Sanjay Jha is trying to get at is, okay, fine. It is a Hindu Rashtra. No one should be, not proud about our civilizational heritage, about our cultural heritage, who we were as a nation. I keep saying India is a civilizational state. It's not just a modern-day democracy from 1947. We're a civilizational state. But the one question that all of them seem to ask is, okay, Hindu Rashtra, yes. What then is the place of minorities in a Hindu Rashtra? What is an ideal minority in a Hindu Rashtra?
First of all, Hindu Rashtra is not a state, Hindu state. It is Hindu nation.
Yes.
We differentiate between the nation and the state. Our inclination, our philosophy is Hindu, but our state is secular. Our state is not for any particular religion. If you read any of the text of Indian history, none of the Hindu king ever had a state religion except Ashoka, who is supposed to be secular. No other king had a state religion, and every religion had due place, right from South Kerala to North Kashmir, everywhere. Every king had due respect for every religion. Why did the people from foreign lands end up as in asylum, whether they were Syrian Christians or Muslims or Jews? Why was first mosque outside Arabian land built in Kerala? Because we by nature are secular. We by nature believe that every religion needs due respect. When Indiraji introduced secularism, she went to L.M. Singhvi to translate that particular term. He said it cannot be nidharmi. It cannot be non-religious. It has to be sarva pantha samabhav. That is due respect for every panth, every sect, every religion. That is the definition that L.M. Singhvi gave. So that is what our nature is.
Okay.
And Supreme Court defined it. So to say that by saying Hindu Rashtra we are going to throw minorities out, that is totally wrong. And we were secular even when Constitution did not have the word.
Badri Narayan, where are these fears then coming from? Because I think Ratan Sharda is right when he said that, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was this whole phrase was used by M.J. Akbar in one of his columns, where India is a secular nation not because the Muslims want it or the Christians want it, India is a secular nation because the majority of the Hindus want it to be a secular nation, and that's why it is, it is a secular country. The point then is, if the Prime Minister is openly, unabashedly taking part in these religious ceremonies, and like I said, this whole veneer of political correctness that used to be there in previous generations, we should not have that. I mean, there's no need for being politically correct about it. No Prime Minister should have to be, sort of nibbling around toes, if you will, about his or her religion. But the larger question, Badri Narayan, is what then happens? What then happens in the future? Are we going to change as a nation? These apprehensions that Owaisi and Sanjay Jha, etc., are fanning, where are those apprehensions coming from?
You are very right that the aspirations in the nation is changing. A new aspiration, a new identity. You remember before 2014, around 2010 or 2009, after 2007, there was a kind of caste politics, the aspiration of acquiring identity through caste politics. But now this is acquiring identity through the Hinduness, Hindutva, and that is growing, and that is going to change the entire chemistry of the nation, Indian nation. But one thing is very important, what you said, that majority in India have to be very assimilative, and they are, and that should grow, and they should expand this feature of the Hinduness, and they will do, I think, certainly.
Okay, I'll give Shashank Mani.
Just one thing I would like to tell about the national event. You said that Rajiv Gandhi and Indira Gandhi used to go to the places, but it not become a national event because cyberspace. That time the television channels,
correct.
social media, we are not so powerful. Now, anywhere where Modi ji goes, camera starts following him. So social media start talking about him. So it becomes national event.
Okay. So I'll give Shashank Mani the final word. Again, comparisons are drawn to other countries in the subcontinent, right? A Pakistan, a Bangladesh, even a Sri Lanka for that matter. These are all states where religion is front and center of these states. Pakistan is an Islamic republic, so is Bangladesh. In Sri Lanka, there is similar majoritarianism, if you will. Even Nepal is a Hindu kingdom. Why should India alone be squeamish about the religious aspect of its public life or the religious aspect of its state and governance? The idea of secularism, which was imported from France or UK or the United States, cannot be lock, stock and barrel applied to a civilizational state like India.
So I would say that civilization and faith are two sides of the same coin, and I think culture stems out of that. And we have to be proud, and the point that the previous panelist was making, that a new aspirational class is coming. They are really looking at the Rashtra, at the country, whether this is one religion or the other. And I think in some ways, what is happening right now is a reassertion of our own identity as a civilizational state in very different forms. And this is the point that the Prime Minister is making, and I think this is the point not just him, but other parts of society are also making, that it's about time, 75 years after independence, we shed this colonial baggage that we've carried. We're very nervous about who we are, where we go, how we behave, what we do. It's about time we reassert ourselves as a nation which is big, which is soon going to be the largest nation of the world, by the way, not just the largest democracy. And the second point I'd make is we should be not diffident about this. We should project this globally. The world today is looking at another civilization message.
Okay.
China is a copycat state of industrial Europe because it followed Marxism.
Can I make
USA
a point
and
here?
China are in a battle. I think India should step on the stage.
Okay.
We need to say that there is
I'm completely out of time,
That stems
gentlemen. Completely out of time. So sorry, no last comments. I'll leave it at that. Shashank Mani, thank you very much. I'll thank Tuin Sinha, Sanjay Jha, Ratan Sharda, and of course Professor Badri Narayan for joining us. Happy Deepavali to all of you. We leave you with this thought about this cultural rejuvenation, this spiritual rejuvenation as a civilizational state. Is Prime Minister trying to rekindle and re-invoke our pride as Indians and our heritage as Indians, who we were and where we come from. I leave you with that thought. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, talking about our colonial masters. What a circus it's been in the UK over the last week, 10 days or so. Just 45 days into office, Liz Truss having to step down in rather infamous circumstances. Now the big question is, who will replace Liz Truss as the next Prime Minister of Britain? That in just a moment, right on the other side.